You call yourself an RV driver, but what if you've been doing it wrong all along? What if that dream rig you spent your life saving for, the one that cruises like a house on wheels, was one oil change mistake away from a complete engine meltdown? These RVs look perfect. Gleaming paint, panoramic windows, smooth highway roll. But beneath that polished surface, there's a dirty secret. A single oversight, one forgotten gasket, one wrong bottle of oil, one skipped step, can turn that peaceful drive into a $10,000 nightmare. Think it won't happen to you? It's already happening. Every week, RV owners across the country end up stranded, overheated, or engine blown because of simple oil-related mistakes no one ever warned them about. Dealerships won't tell you. Mechanics often overlook them. And online advice? Half of it's flat out wrong. Whether you drive a gas coach, diesel pusher, or a modest Class C, there's a brutal truth behind that engine compartment. If you don't know these 16 critical mistakes, you're gambling with every mile. From coolant leaks hiding in plain sight to oil filters you should never reuse, this video is your wake-up call. And the final mistake? It's quietly killing engines coast to coast, and most RVers never see it coming. It looks like such a small detail. Just a few numbers on the bottle, 5W30, 10W40, 15W50. But using the wrong oil viscosity in your RV is like pumping the wrong kind of blood into a heart that's already working overtime. At number 16, we're starting with one of the most overlooked and most expensive mistakes you can make. And it happens way more often than you think. Viscosity determines how your oil flows at cold starts and under high heat. Pick the wrong one, and you're either starving your engine at ignition or losing lubrication when temperatures spike on steep climbs or long hauls. A thinner oil in desert heat, you risk breakdown and metal-on-metal grinding. A thicker oil during cold mornings in the mountains, your engine struggles to start and wear piles up fast. One RVer driving across Arizona used 20W50 thinking it would protect better. Instead, his engine overheated halfway through the state. When the tow truck arrived, his oil had broken down, the bearings were scorched, and the engine was done. The repair cost, $9,200. Always check your manual and match viscosity to both your engine type and the climate you'll be driving in, because one wrong number on the bottle can wipe out your entire vacation and your wallet. But if you think a mislabeled bottle is bad, wait until you see what happens when a mechanic forgets something the size of a bottle cap and it drains your oil out in seconds. That's coming next. At number 15, we're looking at a mistake so simple, so tiny, you'd never expect it to cost you thousands. But it does. Fast. It's forgetting to remove the old oil filter gasket. That little rubber ring that's supposed to come off with your old filter, if it stays stuck to the engine block and you screw the new one on top of it, you've just created a disaster. Here's what happens. The double gasket can't seal properly. As soon as you start your engine, pressurized oil starts pouring out. Sometimes instantly, sometimes over the course of a few miles. Either way, your RV is losing oil and your engine is losing its life. One DIY RVer changed his oil in the driveway before a long weekend trip. Everything seemed fine until he pulled into a rest area and saw oil streaking down the undercarriage. The old gasket had stayed behind. By then, the damage was done. He'd lost most of his oil on the freeway, and his bearings were already scorched. Final bill, $6,700. Always check the filter when you remove it. Make sure the gasket comes off with it. This is one of the most common mistakes. Even seasoned techs make it when they're rushing. But if you thought a small ring of rubber could cause chaos, wait until you see what happens when your RV has been sitting for months and you start it up with old, contaminated oil still inside. That's next, and it gets ugly fast. You parked the RV for the winter, covered it, protected it, didn't drive it once. So the oil's still good, right? Not even close. At number 14, we're breaking down a mistake that happens every spring and costs RV owners thousands. Firing up your engine after long-term storage without changing the oil first. Here's what most people don't realize. Oil breaks down over time, even if you haven't driven a single mile. Moisture builds up in the crankcase. Fuel residue from the last startup settles into the oil. And the protective additives inside the oil, like detergents and anti-corrosion agents, slowly lose their potency. What's left is a cocktail of weak, acidic sludge. One RVer left his Class A diesel parked from October to March. Come spring, he cranked it up and hit the road without changing the oil. Just 200 miles in, his check engine light came on. A dealership diagnosed early internal corrosion and clogged oil passages. The bill? $4,400, all because he skipped a $90 oil change. Here's the rule. If your RV has been sitting longer than 3 months, change the oil. No matter what the mileage says, old oil is silent damage in disguise. And speaking of invisible threats, just because your oil looks clean doesn't mean it's safe. The next mistake involves something you can't see, but your engine definitely feels. Your RV has been sitting for months. You haven't driven it, so the oil must still be good, right? Wrong. One of the most expensive mistakes RV owners make is starting the engine after long storage without changing the oil first. Here's the truth. Oil doesn't just degrade from driving, it breaks down with time, moisture builds up inside the crankcase, additives weaken, tiny traces of fuel and soot settle into the oil and start turning it acidic. That acidity can corrode internal parts the moment the engine starts. One RVer parked his rig all winter and didn't change the oil in spring. 200 miles into his trip, the engine light came on. A mechanic found internal corrosion and clogged passages. That saved oil cost him over $4,000 in repairs. Always change the oil if your RV has been sitting longer than 3 months, even if the mileage is low. It's not just about distance. It's about time, chemistry, and engine survival. And if you think oil that looks clean is safe, just wait until you hear about the invisible damage hiding inside. That's coming up next, and it's something most RVers never test for. You check the dipstick. The oil looks clean. Everything seems fine. But underneath that golden shine, your engine could be crying for help. At number 13, we're talking about skipping oil analysis, a simple, inexpensive test that could save you thousands. Oil analysis works like a blood test for your RV's engine. It reveals what your eyes can't see: metal shavings, fuel dilution, coolant contamination, and early signs of internal wear. And the best part? It usually costs less than $30. One full-time RVer sent a sample to a lab out of curiosity. The report showed elevated copper and traces of antifreeze, early signs of a leaking head gasket. He caught it in time, replaced the gasket for under $600, and saved his engine. Had he waited, that same leak could have led to a full rebuild. Most RVers never bother with this step, but it's one of the smartest moves you can make, especially before a long trip. Think of it as a window into your engine's health. And speaking of trust, what happens when you leave your diesel RV in the hands of someone who doesn't know the first thing about it? That mistake's up next, and it's a costly one. They're fast, they're cheap, and they might destroy your RV. At number 12, we're calling out a mistake that happens more than most diesel owners want to admit: trusting a quick lube shop with your RV's engine. These places are designed for compact cars, not massive diesel pushers or heavy-duty Class Cs. Many techs don't know the difference between gas-rated oil and diesel-rated oil, or worse, they use whatever's on hand. That one bad decision can lead to low pressure, fouled sensors, or total engine failure. One RVer pulled into a national chain for a quick oil change. The tech filled his Cummins engine with gasoline-grade 5W20. Within 2 weeks, warning lights popped up. The emission system choked. A full inspection revealed damage from oil that couldn't handle diesel heat or soot. Final cost? Over $6,000. Diesel engines need oil with specific additives to handle high pressure, soot buildup, and turbo heat. Always use diesel-rated oil, and only trust shops that work on RVs regularly. Better yet, do it yourself or go to an RV-specific mechanic. And if you thought trusting the wrong shop was bad, wait until you see how one twist of a wrench can wreck your entire oil system. That's next. At number 11, we're looking at a mistake that's made in garages and driveways every single day: over-tightening the oil drain plug. It sounds harmless. You want it snug, secure, tight, but if you crank it down just a little too far, you could end up cracking the oil pan or stripping the threads completely. This is especially dangerous on RVs, where many pans are made from aluminum or light alloys. These materials can't handle brute force. They need precise torque. One RVer decided to do his own oil change using a basic wrench with no torque reading. He gave it just one more turn for safety. That extra twist stripped the threads. Oil started leaking out slowly over the next few days. By the time he noticed, the engine had already suffered wear. Total repair: $1,100 for a new pan and labor. Here's the fix: always use a torque wrench and check your RV manual for the exact specification. Most drain plugs require far less force than you think. And if you think that mistake is easy to make, the next one is even more deceptive, because the oil looks fine, but your engine wasn't built for what's inside that bottle. It says motor oil on the bottle. It even matches the viscosity. But if you're using car oil in your RV's engine, especially a diesel or heavy-duty rig, you're making a costly mistake. At number 10, we're exposing how many RV owners unknowingly underprotect their engine by using oil not built for RV demands. Car oil is designed for lightweight engines, short trips, and limited heat exposure. RV engines, on the other hand, run hotter, longer, and often under heavy loads. Heavy-duty oil includes higher levels of anti-wear additives like zinc and phosphorus, better thermal stability, and soot control that's crucial for long drives and towing. Without these, your oil can shear down, overheat, and fail to protect your engine's moving parts. One owner used standard 5W30 car oil in his Class C for a 2-week road trip. By the end, his engine was burning oil, losing compression, and running hot. The mechanic found sludge buildup and wear on the camshaft. The oil had simply broken down too fast. Final bill, $4,700. Always use oil rated for heavy-duty or RV use. Look for API CK4 or CJ4, because in the RV world, not all motor oil is created equal. And if your last trip involved towing or mountain driving, the oil in your engine may already be toast. That's what's next. You just finished a long trip. You towed a vehicle, climbed steep grades, drove for hours in the heat, but the oil's still good, right? Not if you were towing. At number 9, we're talking about a mistake that shortens engine life fast: skipping an oil change after hauling heavy loads. Towing puts serious stress on your RV's engine. Higher RPMs, more heat, and longer periods under pressure all break down oil faster, regardless of mileage. That oil you think is still fresh might already be chemically cooked. One couple towed their car through the mountains for a week-long trip. They didn't change the oil afterward because it had only 2,000 miles on it. 3 weeks later, their engine started running rough. The oil was thick, sludgy, and full of metal. Heat and stress had already broken it down. Their final cost? Over $5,000 in repairs. If your RV has just finished towing, treat it like a high-mileage interval. Don't wait. Change the oil. Before we keep going, hit that subscribe button, because knowing these tips could save you thousands in repair bills. And up next, a bottle of oil treatment that promises to clean your engine, but might just choke it instead. They promise to clean your engine, clear out sludge, restore performance. But used the wrong way, these little bottles can quietly destroy your RV. At number 8, we're talking about improperly using oil flush additives, a mistake that many RV owners make without knowing the risks. Flush additives are designed to loosen deposits and clean internal engine parts. But if your engine already has built-up sludge, or if you don't follow up with a proper oil and filter change immediately, you're not solving the problem. You're making it worse. One RV owner poured in a flush additive before a long drive, thinking it would freshen up the engine. Instead, it loosened hardened sludge that clogged his oil passages and overwhelmed the filter. Oil flow dropped. Friction soared. By the time he reached the next town, his RV was overheating and knocking. Total cost? $6,100. If you plan to use a flush, make sure your engine is in good condition, follow instructions exactly, and always change both the oil and filter immediately after. And if you think a flush is risky, wait until we talk about one of the biggest myths in RV maintenance: the idea that low mileage means you're in the clear. That's next. At number 7, we're busting one of the most common and costly RV myths. I haven't driven much, so I don't need to change the oil. The truth? Low mileage doesn't mean low risk. In fact, oil can degrade faster in an RV that just sits. Here's why. When your RV isn't used regularly, moisture starts to build up inside the engine. That moisture mixes with the oil and forms acids that quietly eat away at internal components. Long before you hit the road, add in leftover fuel or soot from the last time you ran the engine, and now you've got old oil that looks clean, but is quietly doing damage. One RV owner skipped an oil change after sitting parked for 5 months. Barely used it, he said, but by the time he got back on the highway, the oil had broken down. The engine was running hot. His valve train showed early wear. The repair cost? $3,800. Always follow time-based oil change intervals, usually every 3 to 6 months, even if you've barely driven. Your engine can't tell time, but bad oil always leaves its mark. And speaking of shortcuts, what happens when you try to save $15 by reusing a filter? That's next. You're changing your oil. The filter looks fine. Threads are intact, so why not reuse it? At number 6, we're exposing a high-risk shortcut that seems harmless, but can cost you thousands: reusing your oil filter. Oil filters are designed for a single service cycle. Once they've been through a few thousand miles, the filter media inside starts to degrade. Reusing one means you're pushing dirty oil back through your engine with a filter that might already be clogged or collapsing from pressure. And if the bypass valve fails, that's unfiltered oil circulating at full speed. One RVer reused his filter to save money. On his next trip, the oil pressure dropped halfway up a mountain. His reused filter had failed internally. Unfiltered oil pumped sludge through his engine, scoring the cylinder walls. Total repair cost, $5,300. A new filter costs what? $10? $15? Compare that to a destroyed engine. It's not even a question. Always replace your oil filter with every oil change, no matter how new it looks. It's your engine's first line of defense, and it only gets one shot. And if you think skipping a filter is risky, wait until you see what happens when you ignore a blinking red light on your dash. That little red oil can icon on your dash, it's not a suggestion, it's a warning that your engine is in danger right now. At number 5, we're talking about one of the fastest ways to destroy an RV engine, ignoring low oil pressure warnings. Some RV owners see that light flicker and think, I'll check it later. But low oil pressure means your engine isn't being lubricated properly. That means friction, heat, metal on metal damage happening in real time. One RV driver saw the light blink during a steep climb. He kept going. Probably just a sensor glitch, he thought. 10 miles later, the engine locked up. The crankshaft had seized. Oil starvation had done its work, and there was no saving it. That one warning light cost him over $9,000. Here's the rule. If your oil pressure light comes on, shut the engine off immediately. Check the oil level. Look for leaks. If something feels off, get towed. Because once oil stops flowing, it doesn't take hours. It takes minutes to cause permanent damage. And coming up next, a mistake that happens even with the best oil, because your engine might not be built for what's inside that bottle. Synthetic oil is often seen as the gold standard. Better protection, better flow, better everything. But not every engine is built for it. At number 4, we're exposing a mistake that feels like an upgrade until it starts leaking from every seal in your RV, using synthetic oil in an engine that wasn't designed for it. Synthetic oil flows faster, especially in cold weather, but in older RV engines with worn seals or gaskets not rated for synthetic, that extra slickness becomes a problem. It seeps past gaskets, burns off, and lowers oil pressure without warning. One longtime RVer switched to synthetic before a cross-country trip, thinking he was doing his engine a favor. 2 weeks later, he noticed oil spots under the rig and smoke from the tailpipe. The synthetic oil had found its way through every weak seal. By the time he checked, his oil level had dropped dangerously low. The result? Scorched piston rings and a $4,200 rebuild. Before switching to synthetic, check your owner's manual. Make sure your seals are in good condition. What works for a new diesel pusher might destroy an older Class C. And if you think leaking oil is bad, just wait until one wrong turn of a wrench leaves you replacing your entire oil pan. That's next. At number 3, we're looking at a mistake that happens in seconds, but the repair will cost you days and thousands. It's stripping the threads on your oil pan. Whether you're over-tightening the drain plug or cross-threading it during reinstallation, this one tiny misstep can mean total oil failure. Oil pans, especially on RVs, are often made from softer metals like aluminum. That means they're easy to damage. One extra turn with the wrong wrench and the threads are gone. The plug won't seal. Oil starts leaking. You might not even notice until your oil light flashes or your engine seizes from lack of lubrication. One RV owner decided to change his oil in a rush before a weekend trip. He cross-threaded the plug, didn't realize it, and drove off. A slow leak began. 3 days later, the engine shut down. The result? A $1,200 oil pan replacement and a damaged lower engine. Use the right tool, always start threading by hand, and never over-tighten. Check your torque specs and stick to them. We're down to the final 2. And what's coming next is so reckless, so common, and so preventable, it'll make you rethink every trip to the mechanic. You just picked up your RV from the shop. The oil change is done. You're ready to hit the road. But here's the dangerous truth. Assuming everything was done right could cost you your engine. At number 2, we're talking about one of the most preventable and expensive mistakes RVers make. Not checking their oil after a shop visit. Even the best mechanics make errors. Caps get left off. Filters go loose. Wrong oil gets poured in. And you won't know until it's already too late. One RVer drove off after a routine oil change from a national chain. 2 hours later, he smelled burning oil. The filler cap had been left off, and oil was spraying all over the engine bay. He lost nearly 2 quarts before he even noticed. Another owner had the wrong viscosity oil put into his diesel engine. It wasn't caught until his emission system started throwing codes. The damage? Over $5,000 in repairs. Before you leave the lot, always check. Is the oil cap secure? Is the filter snug? Is the dipstick reading correct? Trust, but verify. Because the next mistake? It's the most common oil disaster of all, and most RVers never even realize they're doing it. You found a great deal on oil. It's the right viscosity. The brand looks familiar. But here's the catch. It's not rated for your RV engine. At number 1, we're revealing the most common, most overlooked, and most damaging oil mistake RVers make. Using non-rated oil that doesn't meet your engine's required specifications. It's not just about numbers on the bottle, it's about the oil's certification. If it's missing the correct API or ACEA rating for your engine, it could be lacking critical additives your RV desperately needs. These include detergents, anti-wear compounds, and thermal stabilizers. Without them, your oil can shear down, sludge up, or burn off under heavy loads or long trips. One diesel RV owner bought cheap oil online. Same viscosity, but no diesel-rated certification. Within a few thousand miles, the oil had broken down. Sludge coated the lifters, camshaft wear set in, and the engine had to be partially rebuilt. Total cost? $7,800. Always look for ratings like CK4 for diesels or SN Plus for newer gas engines. The wrong oil doesn't just shorten your engine's life, it can end it completely. If this list helped you avoid even one mistake, hit that like button. Subscribe for more brutally honest RV tips, and drop your worst oil change story in the comments. We just might feature it next time.